This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to another episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I'm going to make sure I take the time out to remind you, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode, make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review, wherever this is your podcast at. It'll be very appreciated, very helpful. Let us see what you guys like, if you guys dislike the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And, I mean, it's only right that we kick off this episode talking about what I thought could be one of, if not the game of the day, and it proved to live up to that billing. Cardinals, Bills, I know I normally start off with the NFC or AFC, whatever, but this game was just too good that, I had to start. And I mean, again, if you saw the game, you know why I would start off with this. If you didn't see the game, you probably at least saw the ending of the game, which again would remind you why I would want to talk about this first. So, like I said, this game, on paper, it was going to be a good game. Two teams that are playing very well right now. The Bills came in at 6-3. The Cardinals came in at 6-2. So again, a good matchup, good teams. Both teams were, like I said, playing well. Both offenses were playing well. Both defenses, could be better. They could be worse, but they could be better. So you knew that it was going to be a situation where points are probably going to be put up. Plus, again, if you got good Josh Allen and good Kyler Murray, you knew that there was a pretty good chance that there were going to be a lot of points scored in this game. And it did not disappoint. The teams combined for 62 points. And like I said, it was the kind of offensive game that we thought it was going to be. It was a bit more Buffalo early. They led 16-9 at half. The Cardinals really couldn't really punch the ball, and they had to kick 3 field goals in the first half. Even though, like I was saying, both teams were driving the ball, both teams were moving the ball well. It was just that they would just get bogged down, and then they would have to, like I said, settle for field goals. They kicked field goals of, I think it was like 20 something. They kicked a 23-yard field goal, a 42-yard field goal, and a 21-yard field goal in the first half. The Cardinals did. Meanwhile, the Bills got a touchdown on a Isaiah McKenzie fake reverse. It kind of looked like he was gonna get a jet sweep, and then he threw it back to Josh Allen, which again is not new. If you've watched any of the Bills' offense, you know that they like to do creative things with their offense, the way they use their receivers, the way they use their quarterbacks, having them throw the ball, having them, like I said, do jet sweeps and different types of screens and different things. Brian Daboll is very good and very creative with that offense. So, again, that's just another wrinkle on that. It's not the first time Josh Allen's caught a touchdown pass, I believe. I think, didn't he catch one in the playoffs last year against the Texans? I could be wrong about that. But, like I said, I'm pretty sure that he had a touchdown pass. He caught a touchdown pass like that before. So, like I said, other than that, they weren't really able to get a whole lot going. They had to settle for field goals as well in the first half, but theirs were a little bit longer. They kicked a 54-yard field goal, a 55-yard field goal, and then Tyler Bass kicked a 58-yard field goal to close out the half. So, he was clearly feeling it today. But again, indoors in a dome, you would think that without the wind and different things to affect it, you may be able to have a chance to get some of these things going. When the second half comes, the Bills come out the half and score a touchdown. So now they're up 23-9. So you're like, oh, okay. Can the Cardinals come back? Or the Bills just going to run away with this? You really don't know. And then that's when Kyler Murray turned on the jets, if you will, and Ray started utilizing his legs. He had a 1-yard touchdown run on like a zone read. He had a 15-yard touchdown run. And, I know we just had Lamar, and obviously he's considered like the cream of the crop when it comes to running quarterbacks based off last year, and I get that. But what Kyler Murray is doing with his legs right now is absolutely phenomenal. I think he came into the game, I have to double check this, but I'm pretty sure he came into the game with, let me run the numbers real quick. I'm trying to see how many rushing touchdowns he had, coming in. So I think he had 8 coming into the game, and now he had another 2, so he's up to 10 rushing touchdowns already. Whereas if you look at Lamar, even from last year, I know he had 1,000 yards, but I don't know if he had this many touchdowns. Like I said, I want to double check that for you guys to make sure. But like I said, if there's anybody that could catch or surpass Lamar when it comes to running at the cornerback position, I think it can and may very well will be Kyler Murray, especially if you base it off of what's going on this year, because he's, like I said, he's just different running the ball. He's different, and especially at that size. He only had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. Granted, he had 1,200 yards, so Kyler's still got a little bit of ways to go to get to that. But like I said, he only had 7. Kyler is already at 10 through 9 games. Like, there's a legit chance he's going to get to 15 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, we'll see how the Cardinals finish out, but I think he could finish second or third, depending on Aaron Rodgers, because we'll talk about the Seattle in a second, and Russell Wilson. But he could finish second or third in the MVP race. And just because, again, just the what he's doing with both his arm and his legs, and then obviously the Cardinals are winning. Again, I still think Mahomes right now is at 1 just because of the numbers he's putting up. But in terms of who's going to finish behind him, I think Kyler Murray has as good a chance as any to do that. So like I said, he really got going there in the third quarter. Started utilizing his legs a lot more. And the Cardinals as a whole on the game really ran the ball very well on the Bills. So again, the defense is not really what you'd hope it would be. And then the end of that game was absolutely spectacular, to say the least. You had the Bills who, after Josh Allen did some Josh Allen things, do a couple interceptions in the second half when they were up. The first interception led to the 15-yard touchdown by Kyler, and then Kyler Murray threw an interception back. Towards later, Fitzgerald got picked off. Then the Bills were able to capitalize on that. Then Josh Allen threw another pick later on in the game. This one was to Drake Kirkpatrick, and you're just like, oh, Josh Allen's going to do Josh Allen things. He's going to throw the game away. And then the Cardinals were able to capitalize on it, unfortunately. So then they got the ball back, and then the Bills drive down 12 plays, 78 yards. Josh Allen hits Stephon Diggs on a amazing route. Patrick Peterson, I'm sorry, but he's not what he once was. It is what it is. Stephon Diggs, as they said when it happened, may very well be the best receiver in the league this year. Don't know if I'd go that far, because we'll get to who it could be in a second. And he's been spectacular. He's been everything Bills fans and the Bills ownership and Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and Brian Daboll would have wanted when they traded for him, and then some. Like I said, I imagine, no offense to Kirk Cousins, but I imagine, as crazy as it sounds before the season to say this, I imagine he's very happy he got out of Minnesota, now has Josh Allen throwing him the ball instead of Kirk Cousins. Which is, again, wild to say at this point in time, just because of the fact that, again, before the season, you would thought you'd been like, I don't really know about that one, because I don't think either of them are that good. But now it's clear as day that at least Josh Allen this year is better than Kirk Cousins is. So, like I said, so that happens with 30. They connect on that touchdown with 34 seconds left, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this one's over. The Bills came back, they won. Josh Allen, does what Josh Allen does, kind of has his mistakes, but then is good at the end to get the win. And then Kyler Murray says, not so fast, my friend. DeAndre Hopkins says, oh, he's the best receiver in the league. All right, let me remind you who I am, who I was able to put up 1,000-yard receiver with literally guys off the street at quarterback down in Houston. So then the Cardinals go 4 plays, 75 yards. They cap it off with a Hail Mary more or less a Hail Mary. It was like a 43-yard touchdown pass, but Kyler scrambles, evades the rush. If you watch the highlight, literally every aspect of that play is amazing. First, Kyler is scrambling left, evading sacks so he doesn't get tackled, because if he did, it would have been a disaster. Rolling left, turning, heaving the ball up, DeAndre Hopkins getting down there, obviously, jumping up over 3 Bills defenders. Not 1, not 2, but 3, including Trey White, an all-pro caliber corner. Snatching the ball up over them, bringing it into his chest. I mean, if you like, when people talked about like getting mossed, like that's the literal definition of it. Like what DeAndre Hopkins did right there in that moment. So he jumps up over the 3 of them, snags the ball, comes down with it. The Cardinals win. They like take a knee on the point after because again, there's no reason to go for it in case it gets blocked. There's a bad snap or whatever. Now you return it. Now it's a tie game. So, and like I said, and that was it. They did a little kickoff, but it really didn't matter because again, those plays rarely ever work like that. So Cardinals come back after the Bills come back. That game was spectacular. The ending was spectacular. And like I said, as good as Stephon Diggs is, and how good as he's been this year, we need to remind ourselves that DeAndre Hopkins is that guy. Like, let's just tell him that. DeAndre Hopkins is that guy, has been that guy, still is that guy. And like I said, that's a player you're going to be seeing for years and years to come. Especially, like I said, if Kyler pulls out the MVP this year, you're going to just, like I said, that catch, that play, that everything's going to be everywhere for a long, long time. But yeah, like I said, that game was spectacular. The ending was spectacular. Shout out to Kyler. Shout out to DeAndre. I mean, like I said, I literally yelled watching the TV when I saw it. It was absurd. So yeah, just trying to take it back down to some other big games in the NFC. The Bucks got back on the right track. They absolutely smoked the Panthers. 46-23, like a college game out there. Brady was great. 341, 3 touchdowns. Ronald Jones had a 98? Yeah, 98-yard touchdown. Made one guy miss and then just outran everybody else. Mike Evans had a touchdown. Gronk caught a touchdown. Cameron Brate caught a touchdown. Antonio Brown was utilized more. Chris Godwin was utilized more. So like I said, this is what the Bucks could look like if their offense is going. And and if it is going like this today, they're going to be, like I said, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And yeah, just one of those things. You were curious to see how they would bounce back after the Saints game, and clearly they bounced back in a big way. And now they got the Rams next week on Monday night, so that should be an interesting one because the Rams, along with the Cardinals and the Seahawks, are now tied at the top of the NFC West due to their win against the Seahawks. The Cardinals are technically in first as of this moment, according to at least ESPN's standing, so don't know exactly what the tiebreaker is there. It's probably, it's division record because they're 2-0. And the other teams have at least one loss. So, like I said, they're at the top. No, they're tied up at the top. But like I said, yeah, Russ had another one of his bad games. I believe he has 9 or 10 turnovers or something like that in the last 4 games. So like I said, all that MVP hype has definitely taken a step back. He's turning the ball over way too much, threw 2 more picks today. And these weren't even when he was targeting Jalen Ramsey. They were avoiding Jalen Ramsey for most of the game. And yet and still, like I said, he had a couple big turnovers. I think he might have fumbled too. Oh yeah, he fumbled too. It was a bad snap, but he just, like I said, he wasn't able to pick it up. I'm trying to think who got the picks. It was Williams, the rookie, that got one of them. Yeah, I think they get both. I'm trying to see if he got both. Because he got through one in the first, one in the second. Williams got both. So like I said, shout out to him. He's been playing really well as a rookie. And a sneaky thing about the Rams is that their defense, especially in the second half, has been excellent this year. Which again, not many people are talking about. I don't feel like it's getting as much notoriety and praise as it should be. But like the Rams defense, especially in the second half, I believe they said someone on Twitter was saying they've only given up. I think if you go to check it football, Pro Football Reference or something like that, they've only given up 6 scoring drives in the second half of games this year. As opposed to the next closest team is Washington with 10. So that's 13% of their drives in the second half on defense that they've given up scores on. And like I said, that doesn't matter. Field goal, touchdowns, or whatever. I think they said they're having something like 3 or 4 points in the second half of games. So I don't know what type of adjustments they make at halftime, but clearly they're working because they are dominant in the second half on defense. And like I said, that's going to be a big thing moving forward because the offense still isn't bad, isn't great, isn't what it once was, but it's not bad. But the defense can play like this, get turnovers, get stops, hold teams to basically no points in the second half of games. They're going to be a tough team to beat. going forward. So, like I said, I'm going to curious to see about that, how that goes on. Also, the Saints dominated the Niners, which, again, not surprising. But the big story out of that is that Drew Brees didn't play in the second half. So we'll have to see what happens with that and his MRI and everything that comes back, because that could be an interesting development. Obviously, we saw what happened last year when they had to, when they were without Drew Brees. Ted Bridgewater stepped in, went 5-0, if I remember correctly. So I do believe that James could do a similar thing, especially since the games they got coming up to play the Falcons twice, the Broncos, the Eagles. Like, the Chiefs game will be tough, but this is their next 4 games are against teams that aren't really that good. So I'm not saying they wouldn't like to have Drew Brees, but if James has to step in, I don't think it'd be the end of the world per se. But again, that's just going to be an interesting development, because again, the thought process behind their team is it's Drew Brees, and he's going to be the one that lead them through the playoffs and potentially to a Super Bowl. So as that, if he has any sort of injury, whether it's like serious or not serious, or whether it's going to ail him the rest of the season, that'll be a big development as we move forward. Also in that game, Kamara's still doing Kamara things. Had 7 more catches, 83 yards, and another touchdown. So he's basically he's their top running back and also their leading receiver at this point, though they like to use Taysom Hill a little too much for my liking. So there's that. And the last thing I want to touch on was the Giants. Well, that Lions Washington game was kind of nutty too. Washington lost like a 59-yarder or something like that. After the Lions basically tried to blow the game. It was kind of a weird situation. But yeah, so I want to talk about the Giants only because I know obviously they talked about during the game a little bit. If you watched, I wouldn't have advised you to. But if you did watch, talked about like the Andy Reid coaching tree and the Belichick coaching tree, and how like the Belichick coaching tree hasn't been that good. But at least for the recent guys, like non-Patricia, like Brian Flores and now Joe Judge, they're getting their guys to play hard. Like, they may not have the talent, they may not have the skill of some of the other teams they play, but like they've played teams hard all year, more or less. Like I said, they gave the Bucks a couple weeks ago everything they could handle. The Bucks barely held on that one. Like I said, they played the Eagles close last time. They played the Rams close early in the year. They played the Bears close early in the year. They played the Steelers close early in the year. The only team they got blown out by was the Niners. Funny enough, that was a really good Nick Mullins day. And that's really it. Every other game has been within. Every one of their losses but one, the Steelers game, that was the 10-point. But every other one has been within one score, which again is impressive for a team that you would look and on paper you're like, this team isn't that good. They don't have this guy, they don't have that guy, they don't have like this kind of skill. But somehow again they're competitive. They're always in games, and like I said, they got the win today. Daniel Jones did a good job not turning the ball over. Their running game was solid. Daniel Jones continued to kill the Eagles on the run, which is mind-boggling coming off of a bye for the Eagles, because again, you would think the one thing they would have prepared for was a quarterback run. But apparently Jim Schwartz does not like having a job, because he did not. Also their defense, which isn't like great, it's like solid, and it continued to be solid. I mean, again, they struggled in the running game, but secondary-wise, they really didn't give up a whole lot. Bradbury continues to be good. The Eagles couldn't really do a whole lot. The Giants were able to generate some pressure. They got, 3 sacks on Wentz throughout the game. And, I really don't know who's going to win that division. Now, it's not really an impressive feat for whoever does win it, but I'm just saying at this point right now, it's like, you could argue the Giants at 3-7 and their 3 wins being over the Eagles and Washington twice are the best team in the division. Like, that would be a legitimate argument. I feel like people would be like, yeah, you know what, you're right. The Giants are the best team in that division at 3-7 right now, which again is wild to think about. But yeah, shout out to them. On the Eagles side of things, they suck. Somebody has to get fired at this point. Like, whether it's Jimbo, Doug's not going to get fired during the year, but he needs to give up play calling at least, because brothers came out to bye. Offense looked completely the same as it did pre-bye. No new plays, no new formations. They're still using Jalen Hurts in weird ways. No creativity with that. They're just running the same zone read plays all the time and are shocked when they don't work. Like, if you're going to put Jalen Hurts in, like, at least take Carson off the field so you think they could pass the ball. Like, if Carson on the field, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to pass it, because, like, you're not going to have your quarterback go out there and run around. That doesn't make any sense. Like I said, they're utilizing him wrong. Miles Sanders averaged 5.7 yards per carry today and only got 15 carries in a game that was relatively close most of the game, which, again, is mind-boggling. He was coming to the game like one of, if not the leader in yards per carry Even, like, again, and he still, I think, has gotten 20 carries in a game. I want to say once. I could be even wrong about that. I don't even know if he's even got it once. Yeah, first game that he played against the Rams, the only time he's gotten 20 carries. Which, again, is still crazy to me. Still getting targeted a decent amount, a couple drops, so that wasn't good. But on the ground, like, he should be getting 18 to 20 carries a game the way he's running. Again, if the running game's not working, all right, that's a different story. But the running game's working right now. So why not utilize it? But hey, maybe that's just me. Like I said, I don't think coaching offense is that hard. Get the ball to your best players as often as you can. Seems like a simple concept. But the Eagles make offense look hard. So, I mean, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. Because clearly, their offensive staff, Doug, everybody, they get paid to coach in the NFL somehow. So they must know something that I'm not seeing about why they're running offense this way. Because it seems like, again, when you watch other teams play, and you watch other offenses, and you watch the creativity and the designs and different things, you're just like, it doesn't even look like the same sport. And like I said, it's been this way for 3 years now. Post Super Bowl, their offenses look stagnant. Different players in there. They're like, oh, last year was like, oh, we just need some speed. Now they got speed. Don't know what to do with the speed. Like I said, just like the same offense, just like with different names in the different spots. So, like I said, that's a referendum on the coaching staff, in my personal opinion. So after we come back, we will discuss the AFC side of things. So we'll be right back. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, where should I start in the AFC? Where should I start? I guess we'll just start with the Sunday night game, because that was probably one of the bigger surprises of the day. Just the fact that the Patriots were able to knock off the Ravens. Now, I mean, again, if you were ever into the conspiracies with the Patriots and how, like, things are always weird up in Foxborough, I'd like to point out to you, if you didn't already know, that the rain that was pouring during the Ravens' last 2-minute drill when they were trying to drop the ball down the field, it was like, there was really no shot. Their passing game isn't that good when it's nice out, let alone when there's a torrential downpour. Literally stopped raining like 15 minutes after the game or so, so... Again, and also that just so happened to be the hardest time it rained, I believe, throughout the game. It was raining throughout the game, but it got really bad there towards the end. So I just thought that was kind of funny. But again, I'm sure there was nothing nefarious there, obviously, because I don't think Belichick could control the weather. But hey, maybe he could. But yeah, the Patriots just, like I said, just stifled the Ravens, really. There really wasn't a whole lot they could do offensively to get things going, like I said, especially through the air in a game where the weather was obviously going to play a part. And I mean, in fairness to Lamar, he did have decent numbers, 24, 34, 294, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But like I said, they really weren't able to get a touchdown there until the very end. So it was like really, well, not the very end, with like, they scored with like 8 seconds left in the third. So like at the end of the third. And like I said, the next few drives were punt, and turnover on downs, which again, the turnover on downs with like a minute left, there wasn't a whole lot they were going to do, and it was pouring rain. So Like, hey, it is what it is. And again, it's not like the Patriots offense was lights out. Like, again, they scored more touchdowns, which is nice. But like Cam through the air really didn't do a whole lot. 13 of 17, 118 yards, and 1 touchdown. Jacoby Myers threw a touchdown pass. Former high school, I think they said, high school quarterback, if I remember correctly. So like I said, he's not. I mean, he's used to throwing the ball. Again, this hasn't been. It's been a while, but he's used to throwing it. Rex Burkhead had 2 receiving touchdowns. Like I said, the defense got a couple sacks. They got the 1 pick. J.C. Jackson, he continues to rack up those interceptions. I know he had a rough game last week against the Jets, which again was kind of surprising based on how good he's been. But I think now he's up to 5 or 6 interceptions on the year, something like that. So, like I said, he's been great 6. He's been great opposite. I mean, Stephon Gilmore wasn't out there today, but opposite him, and then obviously having to do a little bit more with him out. But yeah, shout out to him. Kind of an unknown, unheralded kind of guy, but like I said, he's been putting up spectacular numbers, at least in terms of the interceptions. So again, shout out to him. That's pretty nice. What else? Like I said, neither offense could really do a whole lot because again, it was pouring rain. But even with that, this is not a game that people expected the Ravens to lose, based on the fact that the Patriots barely beat the Jets and everything. You're like, all right, okay, even inclement weather, they should at least be able to run the ball. And they weren't really able to do that effectively either. Like, Lamar had a good day, and like Gus Edwards had a couple of good runs, but Dobbins didn't really do a whole lot. Mark Ingram didn't really do a whole lot. Like I said, this is the kind of Patriots defense you would have hoped for throughout the season. Granted, it hasn't always been there, which is unfortunate for the Patriots. That's why they aren't as good as they should be. But hey, they got the win today. So that is always good. So yeah, I think the next game we'll talk about is the matchup of number 1 picks, Dolphins, Chargers. Again, obviously, they're going to have the little storyline around just because they were like top picks and everything, even though they never really played in college. I don't even think they really know each other like that. But still, you just curious to see how they would look if the Dolphins continue to do Dolphins things, or in terms of like playing well, or if the Chargers, could finally get a win. A third win. They, unfortunately for them, could not. The Dolphins defense continues to still be good. And they really, the thing is, they really just jumped out on them early. They got a 14-0 lead on a couple touchdown drives. In the first quarter, they were up 17-7 at half. The Chargers got a little bit closer in the third, but then they were able to extend their lead. The Dolphins were in the fourth quarter and like win pretty comfortably. I mean, they scored a touchdown there late to kind of pull it within a single score. But then they tried the onside kick. They didn't get it, and then they were just able to like kneel the clock out. So in the game, Herbert was all right. Probably one of maybe his worst game, honestly, that he's played so far, you could argue. 20-32, 187, 2 touchdowns, threw an interception to Xavier Howard. I think that is his 5th on the season. I know he's definitely up there in terms of pick number. Yeah, I think that's 5 for him, yeah. Yeah, it should be 5 for him on the year. So, like I said, he's trying to keep pace with J.C. Jackson. I get it. And because he's trying to fight for that All-Pro spot. Hey, look, he might be right there for it. Again, interceptions aren't everything, but they are a thing. They are like a quantifiable stat that people will pay attention to, so that's always good. Defensively, they were able to get a couple sacks on him. They hit him 8 times. So yeah, definitely made things a little bit more difficult for Justin Herbert than it had been. They were the running game was kind of like Balaj 18-68, Josh Kelly 7 for 21. Herbert had a touchdown on the ground. So again, they'll do a little something, but the offense didn't really get a whole lot going. Both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were held under 40 yards. They only had 3 and 2 catches respectively. Keenan Allen did have the touchdown, but still, like I said, the offense didn't really put up crazy numbers. And then on the flip side, Tua was what he has been so far is efficient. 17-25, 169, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which is big. Salvin Ahmed, I think he's a rookie from Washington, went for 21 carries, 85 yards and a touchdown. He was running very good in this game. Jakeem Grant had himself a nice day, 4 for 43 and a touchdown. They also ran a nice play for, what's his name, Durham Smythe, to get him a touchdown as well. So like I said, just a very efficient day. Then, like, the defense showed up, did what it had to do. So, and that's just how the, the Dolphins are going to win games. They're not going to really dominate. Again, they were in a bit of a shootout last weekend, but I'm going to put up 40, 50 points, anything like that. Though they did put up 43 on the Niners a couple weeks ago. But with 2-1, that's not really what they're going to do or what they're going to try to do. They're going to try to be efficient, move the ball, again, and then play good defense on the back end of that. Have Tua not turn the ball over, put the defense in bad spots. And like I said, they got a decent schedule coming up before they hit the Chiefs in the middle of December. They got the Broncos, Jets, and Bengals the next 3 weeks. So you could realistically see them going into that Chiefs game at home 9-3. Like I said, that's not out of their own possibility. 2 is what now 3-0 is a start. Like I said, they've got 6 wins. So again, if you're looking at Brian Flores, I think he could definitely be and should be in Coach of the Year consideration if it's not Mike Tomlin. And also, like, this is what, if Daniel Jones is the guy, whoever they decide to bring in, if the Giants can kind of build off of this year, this is what they could look like next year. Like, all right, they might not be where they want to be now, but in a year, they could be easily competing for a spot in the playoffs, which is, again, exactly what the Dolphins are doing currently. So, again, we'll see kind of how it goes from there and how, again, the Dolphins finish out the season because, again, they got off to a nice start. But, again, it's not about how you start. It's about how you finish. So, like I said, what will be important to see is to see how they finish out this second half of the year, the last 2 quarters of the season. But off to a good start today. So that's what you would like to see. Also, in the AFC, the Steelers continue their unbeaten streak. They are now 9-0 after throttling the Bengals. I know some people maybe thought they could, the Bengals got to keep it close to that offense. They could not. They made Joe Burrow's life miserable all day. He was 21 of 40, only threw for 213 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins had a nice day, but everybody else was pretty much bottled up. The run game was decent overall, but it was kind of aided by the fact that Sean Williams had 1 carry. I guess it was this must have been on like a fake punt or something. He had 1 carry for 39 yards. So like I said, that really helped buoy the stats because everybody else was just like, all right, nothing too crazy. Like I said, outside of T. Higgins, no one else had over 40 yards. So they let T. Higgins get off, but like I said, they did a good job corralling everybody else. And then Big Ben, fresh out off the COVID list, had a great game. 27 of 46, 333 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. So again, if this is what he could do, the Steelers are going to be a very tough team to beat throughout the season. Deontay Johnson had a good game. Juju had a good game. Claypool had 2 more touchdowns. So, I said, the offense can be this good, and the defense can continue to get sacks. They got 4 more sacks today. 9 quarterback hits. Didn't get any interceptions. But, like I said, they still made life miserable for Joe Burrow and recovered a fumble as well. So like I said, if they can still get pressure at this rate and the offense can play this well with Big Ben in there, they're going to be a tough team to beat. Let me just say that. Now, they play the Ravens in 2 weeks. But outside of that, like, it's hard to say where there's a loss in their schedule. Now they play the Bills. You never know about the Bills. The Jaguars just played the Packers tough this weekend. Shout out to them. I mean, they didn't win, but shout out to them. Definitely made it a lot closer than many people I imagine would have expected. They play the Browns at the end of the season. Play the Colts, who aren't a bad team. So, like I said, I don't expect the Steelers to go 16-0 or anything like that. But I'm just saying that the second half of this season is not too difficult. If, like I said, if they can play this level of defense and Big Ben can be efficient, not turn the ball over, continue to spread the ball out to all his playmakers on offense, you never know. And like I said, getting that 1 seed, if there's no extra playoff team, getting that first round bye, and again, not having to play the Chiefs until the conference championship game, is not a bad road, in my own personal opinion. So we'll see how that goes. But shout out to the Steelers for that one. And also the Raiders helped out their playoff chances. They dominated the Broncos 37-12. Josh Jacobs had himself a good day, 112 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Devontae Booker had himself a nice little revenge game, if you will. 81 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Their defense got after Drew Lock, forced 4 interceptions. He threw 4 interceptions? I thought, okay. Yeah, no, he threw 4 interceptions. Good Lord. So yeah, he did not have a good day at all. Also, I think got a couple of sacks, hit him a number of times. It looked like he was kind of wincing, at least earlier in that game. So don't know if we'll find out on Monday if he was hurt or anything like that. But like I said, Jeff Heath got 2 picks. If Jeff Heath gets 2 picks off you, you're not going to have a good day. No offense to Jeff Heath, because he is an NFL player. I am not. But when he was on the Cowboys, he was more known as a hitter than he was as a ball hawk. But, he still had his picks here and there. But yeah, the Drew Lock did not have himself a good day. And the Raiders did. So like I said, still in good playoff contention. For that last spot, them, Colts, Chiefs, Dolphins all kind of fighting for it. Not Chiefs. I meant to say Browns. I'm all kind of fighting for it. And speaking of the Browns, I don't, like I said, I've been trying to dabble in betting a little bit. I am terrible at it, so it probably won't last that long. But I feel for anyone that had I think it was the Browns -4. I think that was the line in this game, because obviously you know what happened there at the end. Nick Chubb broke off a big run. Basically, like, not the last play of the game, but one of the last plays of the game to kind of just ice it. And then instead of just, falling down much earlier, he decided, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to step out of bounds at the 1 yard line after running 59 yards and not get into the end zone. So that was kind of cruel and unusual punishment for anybody that either A, has him on their fantasy team. He only had a good game, but still, if you lose because of you lost those extra 6 points, like if you lose by 6 points or less, you're going to be sick. And then obviously anybody that had the Browns -4 in a situation again, if you bet on the Bills or something, and you bet Bills money line or whatever, all right, that stings because they lost it there at the end, but you knew at least the Cardinals still had a shot. At this one, there was nothing between Nick Chubb and the end zone but grass, and he runs his hardest 59 yards and decides I'm gonna dip out at the 1 and then not score. So I said I feel for the Browns. That game in of itself between them and the Texans was not all that exciting. I think there was some weather issues, so that's why no one really put up gaudy stats. But the Browns ran for 230 yards on the ground again, so they're still doing great on the ground. And they'll probably continue next week when they play the Eagles, because why would it not? Deshaun did not have himself a good day, and probably had a worse day after he saw DeAndre Hopkins do what he did. If Bill O'Brien hadn't already been fired, I would rehire him to fire him again after seeing what DeAndre Hopkins did in that game if I were a Texans owner, but I'm not. So, like I said, I imagine Deshaun had himself a rough day seeing his boy go out there and win a game for the Cardinals while he loses another game, falls to 2-7, and they don't have a first or second round pick, so I don't really know how they're going to try to replace him. But hey, such is life. So, after we come back here, we will switch to the NBA and discuss some trades that one trade that's all but official, just has to get finalized tomorrow or whenever the moratorium's up. Another trade that is maybe in the works, involving a star player potentially reuniting with an old teammate. So we'll discuss that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So we could talk about the deal that's basically imminent at this point. It's all but agreed to. You just have to, like I said, wait until the moratorium's done, say that they can officially go through. But I thought the other deal that's more of a potential deal, no real indication that this is actually going to happen would actually be a little bit more interesting to discuss. So we'll start with that one. And that is with the uncertain future of the Houston Rockets, like Russ may want out. Like, again, there was an article in The Athletic about a bunch of different guys on the team not really liking their role or not liking how much they get paid or how they're being utilized, things like that. So with that, maybe James Harden is testing the waters, see where he could end up. Now, again, Woj and some others have said that, like, the Rockets seem pretty firm in terms of not wanting to deal him, which, again, makes total sense because he's the best player on the team. Like, you don't just trade away the best player on your team, like, for no real good reason. Again, if he wants out, all right, that's a different story. But based on the different reporting, it doesn't sound like he wants out. It just sounds like, he maybe is considering it, especially with Russ gone and things like that. Like, they may be blowing up the team. So, like, hey, if you're going to blow up the team, maybe do me a solid. And that solid may be sending him to the Brooklyn Nets. So yeah, there's apparently the Nets are rising to his top list of possible destinations, sources told ESPN, like, if he were to be moved. Not going to say he's going to be moved, because, again, the Rockets have no real incentive to do it, and also they could get better players from, like, the Sixers or somebody if they really wanted to move him. Like, you could, in theory, get, like, Ben Simmons. I don't know if they would, but in theory, you could get Ben Simmons and then other pieces for James Harden. Like, all right. So we'll talk about the potential details of it, but, again, it just seems a little bit peculiar. So, apparently, the idea of joining Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving in Brooklyn is resonating with Harden. Again, this is according to sources. Durant and Harden were obviously past teammates and have recently discussed the possibility of, like, teaming up again, but there have yet to be trade discussions between the two front offices. Harden has become increasingly, uneasy about the Rockets' ability to compete for an NBA title, fair, and has been considering the possibility of pushing to play elsewhere before his contract expires, sources said. The Nets are believed to be considering the viability of a deal for Harden, but it's unclear how far the franchise would be willing to go in delivering Houston the assets it might require. Rockets general manager Rafael Stone has consistently been telling teams that the team plans to run it back with Harden this season, sources said. The Rockets have seemed inclined to listen to offers on Harden, sources said, although that's customary for most teams around most players. So, yeah, that's fair. That doesn't sound like anything's necessarily in the works. Doesn't sound like anything is definitely going to happen. But at least sounds like there's a possibility, which is something that maybe hadn't been considered previously. Well, obviously didn't be considered because they thought they were going to compete for a championship. And now they're like, you know what, maybe we're not. And again, that's fair. I don't like the idea of teams trying to just, like, run it back just for the sake of running it back. Like, that doesn't really do a whole lot for me. Like, again, running it back with Harden. They're running it back with Harden. Like, does it make sense? Sure. Like, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, where are we running it back to? Like, again, running it back the year where they lost to the Warriors in 7 when they missed all those threes. All right, because Chris Paul got hurt. That makes sense running it back. What are you running this team back for? You got lost in 5 to the Lakers. Like, why? Like, what is telling you, like, you know what? This is the team you want to run it back with. Like, for what purpose? So like I said, I hate when teams do that. Just like, hey, instead of admitting, like, you know what, maybe we need to get better, you're just like, you know what I think we should do? Absolutely nothing. And just bring the same team back and hope something different happens. Like, sure, again, you never know. A lot of sports is luck, especially when it comes to injuries and things like that. But still, it's kind of wild to just expect, like, hey, we're just going to run it back, guys. Like, that'll work. So, again, before we get into the actual trade possibilities with the not the Thunder, the Nets, I just did want to touch on the fact that Harden is owed $131 million over the 3 remaining years of his maximum contract, including a $46.9 million player option in 22-23. So this kind of makes sense because they would each be Harden, Kyrie, and Durant would all be like for 3 more years, and after that, whatever happens if they trade him this offseason. We'll see if that happens. But again, the timelines at least match up with the contracts and things. I think both of them signed 4-year deals. And so again, that math makes sense there. And then, like I said, in terms of the details of the trade, it could center around guys like Karis LeVert and Spencer Dinwiddie. They also have like Jared Allen. They have Nick Claxton. They have TLC, who played well in the bubble. They have some other assets they could use. Plus, They now basically have all their first round picks moving forward, which could be important for the for the Rockets, excuse me. I keep thinking about the Thunder because that's the next team I want to talk about with the trade. But it could be important for the Rockets. The Thunder already have enough draft picks. It could be important for the Rockets because the Thunder, speaking of the devil, have all their draft picks basically for the next 5 years or something like that. So, like I said, they're going to need to find, if they trade Harden, they're going to need to find ways to get better, in terms of acquiring talent and things like that to be better in the future. But it's going to be hard to do that, if you have no draft picks. So, they probably want some of that back as well. So again, the Nets could, in theory, put together a halfway decent package for Harden, but like I said, at the same time, I feel like if you're going to accept a package from the Nets, there are other teams out there with potentially better packages, in terms of trade packages and things like that, that you could get for Harden. So it's don't just, again, you want to do right by Harden, trade him to somewhere where he wants to go, and obviously being on a team with a former teammate, that he had success with, maybe a part of that, but still, again, I think if they're going to trade him, they could get more for him than Karis LeVert or Spencer Dinwiddie. Not that they're bad players, but like I said, in theory, they could get Ben Simmons. Don't know if it'll happen, but if the Sixers are willing to offer a Ben Simmons, there's not many trades you can make that are going to be better than that for Houston. In terms of at least the quality of player, all right, Dinwiddie and Karis could be all-stars. Ben Simmons has actually been an all-star. So, there's that, but he also can't shoot. So again, you gotta take, to each their own. And like I said, I would imagine the Sixers could put together a more lucrative or more, worthwhile package for the Rockets. They are willing to trade Harden. But again, maybe he doesn't want to go to Philly. I don't know. I don't see how that plays out, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Just because, also I think there was a report that came out that apparently of the players that were, talked or broached about the idea of acquiring Harden, it wasn't a consensus. I have to read the article. I think it's from Ian Begley or somebody. He tweeted that out. That there was a consensus among the players to bring him in. And again, obviously a lot of people speculated that the one that wouldn't want him in was Kyrie. Because again, I am kind of curious how it would work. Because they're all kind of three guys that need the ball. So I don't really know how it would work. But then again, you say that about every team with great players. You're oh, how's it going to work? How's it going to work? And then generally speaking, it works because the great players can figure it out. Like I said, people didn't think LeBron and AD were going to work. People didn't think Russ and Paul George and Russ and Harden were going to work or things like that. Generally speaking, you have great players on your team is successful. That's just normally how basketball goes. So like I said, not everybody wins a championship. That's true. But still, in terms of regular season success and them playing together, I would be hard pressed to believe that a team with a starting lineup of Harden, Kyrie, and KD would be bad. Now, again, it's only one basketball, so it's going to be hard for everybody to get their shots and things like that. But then also, you can't double team any of those guys. KD was able to flourish, especially in Golden State, because you couldn't get double teamed like that because, unless they, who you're gonna double team off him so he can swing it to Iggy, and then you can find Steph or Clay on the wing or in the corner for a three. You're not going to do that. So like I said, you wouldn't be able to do, James Harden normally gets doubled. You can't double him now because now you're running a 4-on-3, and instead of Russ not being able to shoot, you're getting the ball to Kyrie or KD, who could knock down those threes that Russ was missing. So like I said, the defense would have to be played differently against them. So I don't know how it would work, but it would at least be intriguing. So I am interested to see if that happens. Don't know if it will, because there seems to be no real reason for the Rockets to do that. But we'll see what happens. But flipping to a trade that actually seems like it's going to go through, the Thunder plan to send Dennis Schroeder to the Los Angeles Lakers. This was tweeted by Woj early Sunday. So ahead of lifting the transaction window on Monday afternoon, the Los Angeles Lakers intend to acquire Oklahoma City guard Dennis Schroeder. Sources told ESPN the deal can be formally agreed to in principle Monday and finalized after the NBA draft on Wednesday night. As part of the trade, the Lakers are preparing to send the player they select with the 28th overall pick and guard Danny Green to the Thunder. The Lakers cannot outright send the draft pick because there is a rule that restricts teams from trading first-round picks in consecutive years. The Lakers sent their number one pick to the Pelicans last year for Anthony Davis, obviously. And also the Thunder have their own pick, or own the 25th pick. That was from Denver, their own pick. It went to Philly, I believe. So it'll be like, and again, so this is the beginning of them starting to trade the assets. Like I said, Chris Paul is another big domino to fall. Eventually, Steven Adams, I imagine, could be another big one. But again, he's only on a 1-year deal, so you could, in theory, keep him around. But Schroeder, I mean, this is a good move for the Thunder because again, it's a guy that he's good, but he's 27. Not that that's that old, but he's 27. Again, your team's probably going to be more rebuilding in these next couple of years, especially with the hiring of the coach that they hired, a former G League coach, an assistant, things like that. Like apparently he's very good with player development. I think Bradley Beal said he was his player development coach back at Florida. And again, you see him, Bradley Beal turned into a lottery pick and has become a very good player. So again, not giving this coach all the credit for it, but still, I think he's gotten high praise from guys in terms of his player development skills, and that makes sense for a team that's going to be pretty young and developing these next couple of years. Like I said, Schroeder kind of doesn't really align with that, only because while he's probably good for the young players like Shea and Baisley and Dort and those kind of guys, like he is at the age where he would probably want to be competing. And the Lakers supposedly think that they're going to lose Rondo in free agency. So if you're looking for a point guard off the bench, this is about as good as you can get, honestly. The guy, again, he's different than Rondo. Like, he's not the same defensive nuisance. Obviously, he's not as old as Rondo, so he doesn't have the same IQ, doesn't have the championship pedigree. But offensively, he's better. Though Rondo was really knocking down the threes in the playoffs, which is kind of wild to see. But again, his first step is amazing. He can take almost anyone off the dribble. His three-pointer got better, especially this year, so if he continues that, that'll be big for them. Again, he takes a little ill-advised shots. He will put himself in a couple heat checks, so LeBron's going to have to corral that. But in terms of, like I said, bench, adding some scoring off your bench, and adding a veteran point guard to go with the championship caliber team, there weren't really many better options than him out there. So I said this is about as good as you can get. And then from the Thunder standpoint, obviously they have to get Danny Green just for salary reasons. I don't imagine he'll be on the team for very long, because why would Danny Green want to play in OKC after playing for... I mean, again, not that OKC is a bad franchise, but like he's played for this, like in his career. Once he got settled in, because he was with the Cavs early, but played for the Spurs, won championship there, won championship with the Raptors, won championship with the Lakers. Like, he's a championship like player at this point in his career in terms of he's going to be a good asset to a team that's competing for a championship. He's not a good asset to a veteran. To a young team that's not really doing anything. Though, again, we'll see. Maybe he'll be welcome to it. But if I'm him, I would not. I don't know I don't know what the buyout situation would be like. I think he only got 1 year left on his deal, but still, I don't know how that would work. I don't know about moving him again, how that would work out. But still, like I said, for salary reasons, I understand why they had to trade him specifically. And then also, like I said, the Thunder get the 28th overall pick, so another young player they can add, whoever that decides to be, on Wednesday. Or maybe you can use those. Well, I guess you can't really use the pick to trade up because they don't actually own the pick, technically. Like, they won't get the pick until after the Lakers make their selection. I think that's, like I said, that's how it was explained in the article. So they don't necessarily own the pick, so they can't use it to move up or things like that. But still, like I said, just another pick to add to their treasure trove of picks that they're going to have this year and moving forward. Just like I said, another asset you can use for like a young player. That maybe could potentially be something for your team or maybe flipped for somebody else. Like I said, that they're usually known to do that as opposed to like buying people out, because they could have bought out Melo, decided to flip him to the Hawks for Schroeder. You got 2 good years out of him, and then now they're able to flip him for a first to the Lakers. And so, like I said, I'm saying Pricey's a very shrewd operator. He's not just going to do something just to do it. Like, all right, yeah, you know what? Like, you know what? If we could get some value out of Danny Green, whether that's via trade or whatever, they're going to try to do that first before they just like go the buyout route. But again, we'll kind of see how that plays out. But yeah, shout out to Lakers. It's a solid addition. And plus, he's only on the team for like 1 more year. He's on a 1 year deal worth $15.5 million. So again, you're going at it for this year. And if he's great and you want to resign him, cool. If he prizes himself out, cool. If he's not good, cool. Like I said, you're only tied to this for this next season. So whatever happens, happens. Like, there's not a 2-3 year commitment or anything like that. And so again, he was good, solid off the bench. And apparently, I think Avery Bradley might be a free agent too. So I think that's another reason why they wanted to get some guaranteed backcourt help as opposed to, again, trying to fight for Bradley or Rondo in free agency. Though, again, we'll see how that goes. But like I said, at least now they have something sure on their roster before they head into free agency. Which, again, is always smart. You don't want to be left scrambling, especially this year, with how quickly it's going to move and how weird it is and everything like that. So, like I said, smart for the Lakers' standpoint. Get a nice vet point guard that can score. And again, he's not terrible on defense. He's just not. I don't think he's the same nuisance level that Rondo is. And then for the Thunder, like I said, you flip a guy that you weren't probably going to utilize this next year, or definitely not utilize moving forward. So it's like he's on last year of his deal, might as well flip him and then get a first round pick out of it, and then we'll see what they do with Danny Green moving forward. So, like I said, good deal in my opinion for both sides. And speaking of good deals and interesting decisions, the Marlins on, I think this was Friday, made a very interesting decision in their front office. So we'll talk about that and what it could mean in the sports landscape going forward. So we discussed that after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So I believe this news came down on Friday. The Miami Marlins have hired Kim Ng as their new general manager, making her not only the first female general manager in Major League Baseball, but the first, I believe, general manager in any of the 4 major American sports. So a monumental moment for not just the sport of baseball, but for sports in general, for women in general, for women that desire and want to work in sports in general. And like I said, it's a shame that we're in 2020 now, and like these type of firsts are like still happening. But again, all it takes is one to break down that barrier, and now like hopefully we will continue to see more, because again, you would think the same thing would happen across the league, all leagues. But then again, we just talked about how the NFL is going to have to institute a new incentive, or not even incentive, but like a new rule where, like, again, if you cultivate a minority talent, you get draft compensation for it. That's just how rare it is in terms of getting them into the premium positions like head coach, general manager, positions like that. So, like I said, in where we start to do that, it's not shocking that the first female general manager would take until 2020 to happen. But still, like I said, shout out to the Marlins and shout out to Kim Ng for that. Ng is 51 and has most recently served as MLB's senior vice president of baseball operations for the past 9 years. From ESPN, I'm reading this. When during those 9 years, she was the highest-ranking Asian American female baseball executive. I mean, I can imagine she was one of the highest-ranking executives. Period. She also served as assistant general manager for the New York Yankees and Los Angeles Dodgers, working with teams that made the playoffs 8 times and won 3 World Series titles. On behalf of principal owner Bruce Sherman, and our entire ownership group, we look forward to Kim bringing a wealth of knowledge and championship level experience to the Miami Marlins. Marlins CEO Derek Jeter said in a statement, her leadership of our baseball operations team will play a major role on our path towards sustained success. Additionally, her extensive work in expanding youth baseball and softball initiatives will enhance our efforts to grow the game among our local youth as we continue to make a positive impact on the South Florida community. and broke into baseball as an intern and spent time in the Chicago White Sox front office. And she will be the highest ranking woman in baseball operations among the league's 30 teams, and is believed to be the first female general manager in any of the 4 major North American men's sports leagues, as we talked about. And so yeah, that's pretty dope. She will be the 5th person to lead the Marlins baseball operations. She succeeds Mike Hill, who was not retained after the 2020 season. Which again, still pretty cool. The Marlins obviously been trying to build up some success. They just made the playoffs in this past season. So, that's always a good thing. You want to go forward instead of going backwards. So, like I said, hopefully they can build off this past season and continue, like I said, to play well and continue to compete for playoff berths and playoff spots, and obviously maybe get a little bit further, things like that. But again, we shall see how that goes, because baseball won't start off for a little while, so we'll see if that happens whenever that happens. But just again, a little bit more background on her. She, like I said, she spent time with the White Sox. She began operating the radar gun and charting pitches. This is back in 1990. By 96, she had developed a reputation as a negotiator and moved up the chain in the organization. That year, she became the first woman to present and then win an arbitration case, facing off against the notorious Scott Boras over pitcher Alex Fernandez. What else? Her relationship with Derek Jeter goes back over 20 years, which again is a part of the reason why I think this hire was made, because obviously everything in life is about connections, like who you know and things like that. And obviously they built a relationship they cultivated a relationship for quite a while. So it only right that if she was going to get hired, it would be by Derek Jeter. So Brian Cashman hired Ng as an assistant GM in 98 when she was just 29 years old. Did not know this. During her 4 years with the club, the Yankees won 3 World Series titles and 4 American League pennants. Among her accomplishments, successfully negotiating contracts with Paul O'Neill, Mariano Rivera, and then shortstop Derek Jeter. Interesting. Cashman said that he was truly excited for Kim when I learned that she would be named the general manager. It's wonderful seeing people accomplish their stated goals, and has been a dream of hers for as long as I've known her. Again, he talked about her track record with the Yankees, and again how it's a great opportunity for her to be working with the Marlins. Apparently, she's been in the conversation for GM jobs for over a decade now. Before landing the gig in Miami, and had interviewed for an MLB GM job more than a half dozen times since 2005, including with the Phillies, Mets, Giants, Dodgers, Mariners, and Padres. And whenever the question, who will be the first GM in MLB history, was asked, her name typically was at the top of the list. But though she won the job, being first was never how she defined herself amid her many accomplishments in sports. At the end of the day, she said, if it doesn't happen, it's not going to see it as my career was a failure. So that's always nice. But yeah, so like I said, she's been around the game for a while. She knows the game. She's, again, been with successful teams in the past. So again, it's not she's like brand new to this. Not they hired somebody. Like you see guys hired like fresh off the field, or like fresh off the announcer's booth or something like that in other sports. Like you're just like, do they even know what they're doing? And like I said, they don't get the same pushback in terms of like having to go through the ranks and go through the proper process and different things. And yet she has had those experiences, has worked with teams, has been around the game. Like I said, worked for the MLB, worked for the Yankees, worked for the Dodgers, been a part of successful teams, done good things during her time with these teams. So it's only right that she would be given this type of opportunity. Because again, if you just like when I was talking about with the Rock and Steven Silas, like again, he's been in the league for a while, over 20 years doing assistant coaches, scouting, doing whatever. And he's finally got his shot. Like I said, it's always nice to see people's hard work rewarded, no matter what field it is. And so you would say the same thing about like doctors or like electricians or like mechanics, whatever. Like you said, you like to see people's hard work pay off, and it seems like she's putting the time, the energy, and the effort into potentially being a GM. Again, like she said, she wasn't going to be defined by if she became a GM or the first female GM or anything like that. But the fact that she is pretty dope. So I am kind of curious to see how this plays out, because again, sometimes people just don't want to be the first, if that makes sense. Just in case like things go wrong. Like I said, they could have hired anyone as a GM. It could still go wrong. It doesn't matter. Woman, male, Asian, black, white, Latino. Like it really doesn't matter. who they could have hired. They still could have gone terribly wrong. And like I said, we don't really know what's going to happen with the Marlins. And we won't know for a few years now. But, again, like I said, I think it is pretty cool that she was given this opportunity. And I'm, again, going to be interested to see how this impacts other sports and how it impacts, even just baseball in and of itself, to see will we continue to see more females, like I said, not just Asians, but just of all ethnicities, be given these type of opportunities, to whether it's as assistant GM or like a president or a CEO or, like I said, a GM, no matter the title. I'm kind of curious to see if they will be given more opportunities like that. And again, I'm curious to see if it extends past just baseball. Like I said, obviously we have female like coaches in basketball and in the NFL. So again, I'm kind of curious to see. I know Becky Hammond's name was a name that was thrown out there in terms of she could be a potential head coaching hire. And again, obviously it hasn't happened yet. Maybe she'll get the Spurs if Greg Popovich ever steps down, or when he steps down from that post. Maybe she'll be the first line to get that job. Like I said, there's more, not a lot, but you're beginning to see more and more women in sports or working in sports and working in like as assistant coaches or assistant GMs or scouts or, like I said, now GMs. So I'm kind of curious to see if that trend will continue, or if, like I said, it'll be like it is with minority head coaches in like leagues like the NFL or the NBA, where just kind of just like it's a thing that, like, all right, there are some, but it's not like it's becoming a trend. Like you said, in sports where they're like 60, 70% African American, the fact that a majority of coaches aren't also African American is kind of interesting, to say the least. But again, I'm kind of curious to see what kind of ripple effect, not to say like in a bad way, but just kind of what kind of effect this has. Because like I said, sometimes people just don't want to be the first one to do something. They're like, all right, let somebody else do that first, and then we'll slide in and get the next one. Something like that. Or like, all right, we just didn't want to be the first one to hire them in sports in general, so now maybe we could do it in football, maybe we could do it in basketball, or like the NHL. I'm going to say maybe we just didn't want to be the first to hire in the MLB, but we have another woman that we think would be great for the job in the future. So maybe like now the Marlins have did this, now we feel okay doing that. Because like I said, sometimes people just don't want to be the leader in these type of movements. Good or bad, because then I said if it goes, you never want to see these type of things go wrong. Just in general, you don't want to see it go wrong no matter who's hired. But like I said, if things do go bad, and like I said, you could get a lot of pushback. Or even just before things go bad, just like the hiring could get a lot of pushback. You never know. Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot. Mainly probably just because it's the Marlins and people don't really care. But just in general, I haven't seen a whole lot of pushback on the move or the hire. Just because, again, she's putting the work. Like, if people put in the work, there's no real reason to knock it just because they may not be the typical look or like the typical like gender or ethnicity for a specific job. And they can do the job. They have the experience. They have the track record. They have the resume to do it. Like, all right, at least give them a shot. So like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot of pushback, which is a good sign. But again, maybe I'm just not looking that hard. Again, if you've seen any pushback on it, which I imagine there is / will be, let me know. But like I said, I haven't seen a whole lot, which is, like I said, a good sign that we're moving in the right direction as a society, as opposed to like we will get to a day, hopefully sooner rather than later, where this is like, it's not like news. I mean, it's still news that like a GM got hired or a coach got hired, but it's not like news that, oh, it's a woman, or like, oh, it's an African American, or oh, it's a Hispanic or Latino, or oh, it's an Asian. Like, that shouldn't be news still. It's like, hey, is this person good at the job? Or in theory, do we think he'll be good at the job? Yeah, okay, cool. And that's all you should really care about. It shouldn't matter like what they look like or like their gender or things like that. Just like, can they do the job successfully? That's what really matters at the end of the day. And like I said, I am kind of curious also the lease she's going to get, but I think the lucky thing for her is that, again, she has the relationship with Derek Jeter built in already. They've gone back, like I said, since the 90s. So like I said, I think that'll give her a little bit more leeway, because sometimes you see with these coaches, like, they don't get the, like, well, you see it in like the NFL or NBA or something, the African American or minority coaches don't get the same rope that the white head coaches get, for obvious reasons. But like I said, they give them a little bit more time, as opposed to like, yeah, we'll move on because like it's not working out. As opposed to, like I said, really outside of like Marvin Lewis, and I guess to a different level Doc Rivers, but like I said, there aren't really that many African American head coaches that I've seen in sports, like, again, during my lifetime, that can underachieve and keep their job with the team for like an extended period of time, or just keep a job. Period. Like I said, Marvin Lewis was able to let go by the Bengals. He had to go back to college and coach an assistant or like be some sort of advisor or something on Herm Edwards' staff. Like I said, obviously Doc got let go by the Clippers and was able to find a job pretty quickly. Like I said, it just doesn't. People don't get that same level of rope. So I'm kind of curious to see about that. But like I said, hopefully the relationship that she's built with Jeter will give her time that she's not going to have to go 2-3 years before you get fired. No, kind of thing. But like I said, regardless, this is obviously a great moment. It's a cool moment for her, a cool moment for the sport, a cool moment for, like I said, sports in general, women that want to work in sports. Like, again, representation matters in all facets. So you just like see for kids and like teenagers, even like young adults, to see like, hey, look, I could do this. Like I said, sometimes when you don't see other people like you do it, you're always kind of curious, like, hey, will I really be given the opportunity? Will I really be given the chance to do this? And now, like I said, having her in that position makes it seem like, all right, yeah, no, I could, if I want to do this, I could eventually get there someday, which is always, like I said, kind of dope. Representation matters in all aspects. Like I said, this is important representation there. So hopefully, like I said, hopefully it works out for the Marlins. But we shall see. And hopefully, again, there's a ripple effect in terms of it's not news, or it's not like this becomes more commonplace. Let me just say that we're not shocked or surprised when like a woman is hired as a scout or a GM or a head coach or a president, within an organization, or like an owner or like a CEO or something like that. Like, there shouldn't be news anymore. Again, if you're good at the job, you're good at the job, and if you're not, we'll find out soon enough. Like I said, men, women, it doesn't really matter. So, like I said, shout out to her. I thought that was pretty dope. So yeah, after we come back here, we haven't talked about college football yet, so we'll talk about some of the interesting games and big takeaways from the college football weekend overall, even though more games were canceled due to COVID after we recorded the last episode. So that was unfortunate. But, hey, like I said, we'll talk about all that stuff after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, I think other games got canceled. I know the Cal Arizona State game got canceled, which is, again, I was a little curious about that one. UCLA Utah got canceled this weekend as well. So that was 2 games. I was looking forward to seeing Arizona State, but now apparently their game next week is getting canceled as well already, because they have their COVID situation is a little ragged. So yeah, this is kind of where we're at. It's kind of where we figured. Oh, did not know Herm Edwards tested positive. Okay, so that's a good reason to not play the games. Your head coach is positive for COVID. But yeah, like I said, it's unfortunate for them. I was looking forward to seeing Arizona State play this past Saturday and obviously going forward. But again, we won't see them for at least 2 more weeks. So that was unfortunate. But of the games that did get played, obviously the one I was kind of curious about was the Notre Dame game, just obviously because, again, they're coming off a big win against Clemson. They got that dub. Now they're going on the road to a Boston College team that isn't that bad. So I was curious to see if they were still going to be laser focused, or if they were going to have a letdown. And Boston College definitely did get off to a good start, so shout out to them for that. They were up 7-3. Then after, I think it was a fumble, I want to say I'm trying to remember the order of events. Yeah, then they fumbled. They weren't able to capitalize on the fumble, unfortunately, but were able to kick a field goal. So they were up 10-3 early in the game. Then Notre Dame was able to tie it up 10-10. And then unfortunately that is about as close as Boston College would be the rest of the game. By the half, it was 31-16, mainly just because the Boston College could not capitalize on the turnover they got from Notre Dame. So like I said, the first turnover they led to a field goal. It could have been a touchdown. They just continued to lose yards after that. Then they were able to cause another fumble. Winner was 24-16 towards the end of the half. And then again, they went backwards and then fumbled. So that's unfortunate. Like I said, instead of potentially, because they were in plus territory at the time too, they got the ball at the Notre Dame 42 on the fumble. So again, instead of going in, maybe potentially tying the game, now you're down. And then to end the half, Notre Dame went on a nice little 10-play drive to go up 31-16, heading to the half again, when it was possible that Boston College could have been tied if they decided to go for two. And then the second half, more of the same. They turn over on downs the first drive, Boston College, then they force another fumble. And next play, they throw an interception. Then Notre Dame scores a touchdown. Then Boston College scores a touchdown. Then Notre Dame scores another touchdown. Then Boston College scored one more touchdown towards the end to cut the deficit to 14. But like I said, their best shot was early in that game to go up 14-3. You're at home. Again, it doesn't really matter because home field is not really that meaningful anymore. But you're at home. You got the momentum, if you believe in that. And like I said, now you got the number 2 team on the ropes. Like I said, you weren't able to capitalize on that. You only kick a field goal, then they come down, tie the game, and they know that they can handle you guys. And then also, like I said, they weren't able to capitalize off their turnovers. They forced a couple of turnovers. Like I said, after one, they kicked the field goal. After another one, they fumbled themselves. And then after another one, they threw an interception. So like I said, if you're not going to capitalize on the turnovers, you're not going to beat teams that are clearly better than you. Notre Dame is definitely better than Boston College, but again, if you wanted to try to pull off the upset, you have to get turnovers and capitalize on them. They weren't able to do that. I say shout out to Notre Dame for once again the dub. But again, I was curious to see how they would come back after their big win. And like I said, they were completely fine. So that is always a plus. Like I said, you don't have a letdown after your first, or after your biggest win of the season. You didn't want to have a letdown. So that was big for them. Also, like I said, because a bunch of the top teams didn't play, like Georgia didn't play, Ohio State didn't play, Texas A&M didn't play, Alabama didn't play. Like I said, we were missing a few of the top teams, but one top team that did play was Florida, and they dominated and put up 63 points on Arkansas in a game where people thought, like, oh, maybe Arkansas can pull off the upset. No. College Trash had himself a day, 23 of 29, threw 6 touchdown passes, 356 yards, man on a mission. Let's just shout out to him. Like I said, when anytime you put up 63 points, it's absurd. Arkansas, like I said, they put up 35 of their own, which in most games isn't that bad. But when you go up 63, it is kind of irrelevant. So yeah, the Florida's definitely staked themselves as just outside of that top 5 at the moment. Obviously because they lost to Texas A&M, so you can't be above them unless Texas A&M loses again. They got 4 games left against Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Tennessee, and LSU. Games they should win. We'll see what happens, but they should win those, and then they would get their chance at Alabama. And like I said, whatever happens, happens. We'll see what happens from there. But like I said, shout out to Florida. They dominated their game. Trying to think what else. USC had another very entertaining one, to say the least. Another game where they're down. And I think this is the second game in a row they were trailing with like 2 minutes left. They put together a scoring drive after Arizona came back and so let's recap the fourth quarter of this game for you. So USC scores a touchdown. They go up 27-23 with like 3:30 left. Arizona drives on the field, scores a touchdown with a minute 35. If you're like, oh wow, Arizona's really going to do this. They're going to pull off the upset. Not so fast, my friend. USC comes down on a very quick drive, honestly. Yeah, 6 plays, 75 yards, and they score a touchdown with 25 seconds left. They ran it in. after, again, Slovis got them down the field. And, yeah, and a game that looks like Arizona should be able to pull off the upset, they end up losing. So that was unfortunate for Arizona. And, I mean, I guess it's good for USC. Like, again, it's better to better to win ugly than to lose pretty. But, yeah, I would imagine USC would prefer not to always have to come down to a last-second drive every time. Again, just win a game comfortably once. That'd be nice. Or not even comfortably, just, be up with 2 minutes left as opposed to being down, needing a last-second drive. Well, I guess technically they were up this game until, like I said, Arizona was able to score. But like I said, I think you might prefer not have to put together dramatic last-second comebacks in every single game. So see what happens when they play Utah in the next game. But like I said, if nothing else, USC games have been entertaining, at least for non-fans. If you're a fan, I imagine it's been very stressful. I would not wish that on anybody. But for us casual folk, it has been quite an enjoyable, quite enjoyable ending to their last few matchups, which, like I said, is always kind of cool when you have some last-second touchdowns and things like that. Just because, again, I'm not a fan, so I just like good football or interesting football games, and those are definitely interesting to say the least. Also, another one that almost was an upset, but then turned out not to be an upset, Virginia Tech and Miami. I was very confused as to why people were like, oh, Virginia, I think Virginia Tech was favored, and I'm like, how is that possible? They're 3-4, and they're playing the number 9 team in the country, who only lost to Clemson, obviously. So, like I said, I was very confused as to why they would be favored. But again, they kept the game close all game. They were up in the fourth. No, they were up in the second half quite a bit. So I was very shocked by this outcome, to say the least. But again, maybe I should have been paying more attention to Virginia Tech. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter. Miami was able to put together a drive there in the fourth. King threw a 36-yard touchdown pass to Mark Pope with about 6 minutes left. And then their defense did what it had to do. Got an interception, which again should have iced the game, but the Miami was not able to move the ball. They had to punt. Then the Virginia Tech got the ball back again. They forced another punt, and then Miami punted back to them. They were able to turn over Virginia Tech on downs. And basically, they tried to do a little hook and ladder situation at the end of the game, and they were just too far to get it done. So, again, shout out to Miami, shout out to the defense for tightening up when they had to. I think they ended up with, they had 6 sacks in the game, 11 tackles for loss. Jalen Phillips had himself a great day, 2.5 sacks, 4.5 tackles for loss. And so he was very good. Like I said, their pass rush was very good. Got to the young fellow hooker. I mean, he's a junior, but I don't think he's that experienced in terms of his play. I guess he played a little bit last year, but obviously he's playing more now, and we'll play more now, but he'll have more staff and things like that. And so, like I said, that was one that shocked me. I was very confused as to why Miami was the underdog in this game, but apparently I should have been paying more attention because that game was tight all the way till the end. So yeah, also just looking around the top 25, Indiana, again, staked their claim as the second best team in the Big Ten at this moment. I believe they play Ohio State next week because, I think the Maryland is why the game got canceled, not Ohio State with their COVID situation. So, again, hopefully there are no issues there. With either of these teams, they can play that game, even though supposedly Ohio State's a very big favorite, 21.5 according to ESPN. Which again is wild that the second best team, currently number 9 team in the country, is a 21.5 point underdog to a team in their own conference. But again, it's still Ohio State. I understand why it'd be like that. So I am intrigued by that. Like I said, they won 24-0 over Michigan State, who again, although they beat Michigan, has not really played that well in any of the other games. They got smoked by Iowa. They lost to Rutgers, and then now they got shut out by Indiana. So who knows if they're actually good or not? But like I said, at least Indiana's still doing what they have to do. Like I said, if you're a good team, you want to show people that you want to show people that you are that team. But like I said, they'll have their big test next weekend when they play Ohio State. And then, like I said, that'll tell us all we need to know about how good or serious this Indiana team is. And speaking of serious, Wisconsin, people forgot about them, obviously, because they haven't played. But they smoked Michigan, who, again, stinks, which is not a development that is that new or shocking. But I was kind of curious to see how Wisconsin was going to come out after not playing for a couple weeks. And the quarterback didn't have the same type of game. It was 12 of 22 as opposed to like only missing the one throw before. He did have 2 touchdowns. But Milton had himself a rough day through 2 interceptions. The offense was only able to generate 11 points. The Wisconsin defense that has been consistently dominant over the years was back in this one. They were up 28-0 at halftime. They were up 35-11 at the end of the third. And like I said, added 2 more touchdowns to get it to 49-11. So, yeah, Wisconsin is still, like I said, they're still like, hey, don't forget about us. I know everyone's talking about Indiana. And they play Indiana in the beginning of December, so I'll really see about that. But yeah, everyone's like, again, everyone's Indiana. And they're just like, hey, look, don't forget about me. Like, we're still good. I know we haven't played in a couple weeks because of COVID, but, like, we're still a good team. And, like I said, they showed that, dominated Michigan. So, again, we will see how that goes moving forward. They play Northwestern next week, who's also undefeated. They are 4-0. So, again, that could be a good game, a good test for them. Like I said, and then 2 weeks after that, they will play Wisconsin. And they also play Iowa, who's 2-2, but their wins are dominant and their losses are close. Like, they lost close to Purdue, lost close to Northwestern, and they dominated Michigan State, and then they dominated Minnesota as well. And they're probably going to smoke Penn State this coming Saturday. So that's fun for me that both of my teams suck in football this year. You know, you just love to see it, don't you? But yeah, so I'm trying to think any other big games that kind of caught my eye. Also, well, just one other thing. Well, 2 other things actually. Oregon continued their, like I said, their good start to the season. They were down a little bit early. It was looking kind of shaky for them, down 19-7 in the second quarter. But they were able to get a touchdown by Verdell to end the half, and they used that momentum to carry them into the second half, and then they just absolutely dominated Washington State from there. Ended up winning 43-29. So like I said, if the Pac-12 wants the team to get into the playoff potentially, it's going to have to be Oregon, and they're going to have to run the table to have any shot. Like I said, I don't think it's impossible that they could do that. But again, you just got to see it first. You got to see it happen first. I want to say that. And also, like, I don't know much about Liberty and about this quarterback that they have, but, like, their offense is putting up, like, a lot of points consistently. Like, they put up 58 this weekend, again, against, like, who even is this? West Carolina or Western Carolina, one of the two. Like, it is what it is, but, like, Liberty's also 8-0. And, like I said, their quarterback, Willis, I believe his name is, has 15 touchdowns to 1 interception on the year, plus 9 more touchdowns on the ground. And that was through the air, completing about 68% of his passes. So he's been great, whoever this guy is. Again, didn't know too much about Liberty before the season, but they are currently undefeated and probably have a good chance to go undefeated. They play UMass, and then they play Coastal Carolina. That's a sneaky, interesting game because Coastal Carolina is also 7-0. No, they play NC State this next weekend. Then they play UMass. Then they play Coastal Carolina. 2 ranked teams, 2 undefeated teams potentially going to that matchup. That's interesting. To say the least, the fact that like these 2 random schools would kind of be on a collision course to a very good matchup in terms of at least record wise. But hey, I am kind of curious to see how that plays out. But yeah, shout out to Liberty. So like I said, didn't know much about them. I think Hugh Freeze is still the coach. The only thing I know about Liberty is that I know he was coaching them from hospital bed. Like I think that was last year. So that's kind of interesting. And didn't he used to be at like Ole Miss or somewhere? I think. No, let me check that. Yeah, he was at Ole Miss from 2012 to 2016. But now he's at Liberty. And they're doing amazing. So hey, shout out to him. But yeah. No, that's enough of the college football recap. But after we come back here, I did want to discuss whether or not some teams / coaches / programs deserve a mulligan for this year, or are we gonna be asking for their jobs in a few weeks? So again, a lot of these are Big Ten schools, but we'll talk about a few schools that I think could be, or a few coaches that could be on the hot seat coming in the season. And if, like I said, do they deserve it, or should they get another shot? So we'll discuss those right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Directed by GSMC Podcast Network. So one of the names that could have been on this list actually got let go today, so that's interesting. That was Will Muschamp down at South Carolina. The South Carolina decided to part ways with him, according to the athletic director Ray Tanner on Sunday. The offense coordinator Mike Bobo, the former head coach of Colorado State, will serve as the Gamecocks' interim head coach for the remainder of the season. The move to dismiss Muschamp comes on the heels of South Carolina's third straight loss, a 59-42 setback to Ole Miss on Saturday. The Gamecocks, who are now 2-5, have allowed a total of 159 points during the three-game losing streak. Big yikes. And gave up 708, bigger yikes, yards of total offense in this game against Ole Miss. Muschamp is in his fifth season as South Carolina's head coach and was 28-30 overall. He recorded more wins in his first 3 seasons, 22, than any other coach in school history, and trailed only Steve Spurrier after 4 seasons as South Carolina's head coach. Spurrier at 28. But South Carolina has finished 4-8 a year ago, and have lost 14 of their past 20 games, dating back to the 28-0 Belk Bowl defeat to Virginia to end the 2018 season. So, yeah, not exactly the hottest streak for them. And so, apparently, the search will begin immediately for a potential new head coach. Apparently, some of the names include Liberty's Hugh Freeze. Makes sense, seeing as he used to coach in the SEC, and they're playing well. Louisiana's Bill Napier. North Carolina's Jamie Chadwell are expected to be among the top targets, along with Shane Beamer, who was Oklahoma State's head coach for the offense, and Clemson offense coordinator Tony Elliott. So, see what they decide there. But, obviously, there's going to be a situation where, when you're losing this badly, and consistently, like I said, they've been doing this for the past couple seasons. It's a scenario where you kind of just are going to, eventually you're going to sour on the coach, and you're going to have to find something to do to try to get the program back on track. And if they think this is it, hey, maybe it is. If it's not, I guess we'll find out soon enough. But yeah, like I said, something needed to be done. So, like I said, he maybe would have been on this list, or maybe would have been in this discussion, but he already got let go, so we don't have to worry about him. But some of the other coaches, like I said, I guess we'll stay in the SEC to start. Ed Orgeron is a coach that, hey, does he deserve a mulligan, or is this just who he is, and maybe we should be looking to let him move on from Louisiana State University. Because like I said, obviously they won the national championship last year, which should buy them some time, you would think. But also, the LSU team was alright. Under his tutelage, he's been with LSU. He's been the head man at LSU since 2016, I believe. He also was the head coach over at Ole Miss for a few seasons. Obviously, the LSU's gotten better. They were 6-2, then 9-4, then 10-3. Then obviously last year they were 15-0. But that could have been more a Joe Burrow thing than an Ed Orgeron thing. We'll really never know. Not even just Joe Burrow. Obviously, they had a lot of players go to the NFL from that team last year. So clearly they were loaded. I have more that will go in Jamar Chase and Derek Stingley and some other guys that obviously will make it to the pros when their time comes. So again, he might have been a lightning in a bottle thing. But obviously they're 2-3 now. The team does not look that good this year. And again, this last year was the first year they've ever even finished first in their division. Like, it's not like they were even playing for championships or anything like that. Like, they were just a solid team. And 9-4, 10-3, like, not bad, but again, also not the cream of the crop when it comes to their division. So that's always a little bit of an interesting note. But yeah, I feel like with him, obviously some people are talking about like, hey, maybe he'll be out of here, maybe he won't be. We'll see. I think with all these coaches, it'll depend on how the season finishes out. Obviously, if things go south, then like maybe we'll see. But man, I would like to think a national championship at least buys you some leeway, like past like the year. Like, all right, at least give them next year to get things together. Obviously, with COVID and like everybody leaving, things like that. Like, it wasn't going to be an easy transition for the team this year. So like I said, maybe that should at least buy him an extra year. I would think if I'm running LSU, I don't know if I would get him out of here, but I know, like I said, seen some of that being talked about. So I thought I would get ahead of that for him. Another guy that I think is probably not on that big of a hot seat at the moment is PJ Fleck at Minnesota. Just because, again, he just got Minnesota like super duper relevant like last year. So it would be kind of shocking to me if they just turned their back on him this fast. Again, this is not the season they would have wanted. They are currently 1-3. He was building things forward, like he got them first year because he came from Western Michigan. Had a great last season there in 2016. Went 13-3, lost in the Cotton Bowl. I think that was the Corey Davis team, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so like he was really good last year. Then they brought him into Minnesota first year. Second year, a little bit better. Third year, obviously, they were great. 11-2. And then this year, they're 1-3, and like their 1-3 is not like a good 1-3. It's not like they're competing. They did, like I said, they just got smoked by Iowa this past weekend. I think it was Thursday or Friday. So it's just like they're not even like playing that well. And that's the weird thing. Like, all right, I know they lost Ty Johnson and Antoine Winfield Jr. and maybe some other guys, but like they weren't supposed to be like this bad. They were supposed to be like better at least. Like I don't think they were supposed to be 1-3 through 4 games and losing 35-7 to Iowa. Like I said, they were ranked in the top 25 to be in the year, so like people thought they were going to be decent. And like I said, they get smoked by Michigan, who's a nail biter to Maryland in overtime, not double overtime, in overtime. Beat Illinois, cool. Then I said get smoked by Iowa. See what happens the rest of the season because they still have to play Purdue, Wisconsin, and Northwestern, along with Nebraska, who looked fairly good against Penn State this weekend, but that might be more of a Penn State thing than it is a Nebraska thing. So, again, it should be interesting to see. But like I said, I don't think, much like with Orgeron, I would be shocked and hard-pressed to believe that they would fire PJ Fleck a year after he just got the team like really good. That seemed like a very quick turnaround in my own personal opinion. But again, I'm not the athletic director. The decision is not up to me. It is up to them. But like I said, I would be hard-pressed to believe that they would get rid of him that quickly. But again, I guess we'll find out if the season's done. Now, moving up to coaches that I think would be on a little bit warmer of a seat. One of them, obviously talking about disappointments, is James Franklin. And like I said, I do believe he'll get a mulligan, just like I think like the other two will get a mulligan just because of the fact that he just signed an extension like this past offseason, if I remember correctly. Like I believe he signed an extension because there was like talks of him potentially going to USC and different things. And if I remember correctly, I thought he signed an extension like after this past season. I mean, granted, the team went 11-2, like they weren't that bad last year. So again, they won the Cotton Bowl. They beat Memphis. Jeremy Brown had himself a great day. It's a shame that he can't continue his football career. Like I said, they were coming off a good year. And obviously, in his time there, he got them back to relevancy. Started off 7-6, then the 2016 season happened. They won the Big Ten. Next year, they came back 11-2. Then 2018 was a little bit of a dip, 9-4. Then 2019, they went back up 11-2. And then now they are currently 0-4, and their team looks bad. The quarterback situation is bad. Offense is bad. Defense is like, eh. So it's just one of those situations where they don't really look that great. And it's like, is this enough to get him fired? Or is this like, is he going to get a do-over? And I think part of it is he's going to get a do-over because, one, they brought in the offensive coordinator. Just like, again, with PJ Fleck, like they took the Minnesota offensive coordinator. They didn't really have an offseason to like implement any of the new stuff. Just like, again, even though I do believe Minnesota should have been a little bit better with Tanner Morgan being back and Bateman being back and like some of the guys they still had on the offensive side of the football. Obviously, they lost Tyler Johnson, which hurt. But again, Bateman was supposed to be better than him, so you would think that wouldn't matter as much. But again, they also had offensive coordinator, didn't have time to like really work through the offseason. Again, not making excuses for anybody because no one had an offseason. But still, I do think that'll play a factor, personally. But again, I am not a GM. I'm not a GM. I'm not the athletic director. So I don't make the decisions. It's up to them if they decide this is a worthwhile thing to give them a mulligan for. Like I said, I think he decided an extension, so it's hard pressed for me to believe he'd get fired the first year after the extension, especially in the COVID situation where the buyout would probably be something crazy. And I don't think Penn State's going to try to afford that right now. I could be wrong, but I would be shocked if Penn State would be trying, but we'll just pay your entire buyout the first year after you just signed a new deal because, like, we're terrible. Like, that makes no sense to me. Now, again, we'll see what happens. That makes no sense to me, personally. So I think he will get a do-over, though, like I said, they got to see how they finish out the season because if they finish, 1-7, 0-8, which isn't out of the realm of possibility at this point with how poorly they're playing, then I think we'd be having a different discussion. But I think, obviously, the Big Ten Championship, and then even, like I said, last year, they were still 11-2. It's not like they were a bad team. I think that will buy them a bit of a time, but they play Iowa, who doesn't look that bad. They play Michigan, who's terrible, but, people in that game could be coaching for their jobs. I'm going to see. They play Rutgers, who at least has more wins than them, and they play Michigan State, who has more wins than them. So, again, none of the teams they played coming up are good, you would argue. But, like I said, how can you say that with confidence? Like, oh yeah, Penn State's going to beat any of them. Like, you can't. Not yet. Like, again, if they win a game, all right, maybe you can feel it differently. But right now, until they win a game, you can't be like, they can win this game because they are playing teams that have actually won games before. You haven't seen that from Penn State this season. So, like I said, I imagine with all different things, like obviously Micah Parsons opting out for him and like the Journey Brown situation and now Noah Cain being hurt, like, the team that they thought they were going to have this season is not the team that's actually out there on the field. So that hurts. Like I said, with the extension thing, I imagine James Franklin will get another year. But if this gets bad, it could go left, especially if they don't figure out the quarterback situation. They're going to have to be attacking the transfer portal heavy, going out there recruiting their next guy. Because, again, they had Justin Fields before he committed. Well, he was committed to them before he committed to Georgia, decided to stay home. So losing him may have set the program back about 5 years. And obviously him leaving Georgia and going to Ohio State catapulted them to continued success over these last two seasons. Because who knows who they would have went with that quarterback if Justin Fields didn't come and help them. Because obviously they didn't have Joe Burrow anymore. Dwayne Haskins was going to the NFL. So I'm kind of curious to see who would have been the guy like Tate Martell. Like I don't know what that quarterback situation would have looked like if not for Justin Fields. But in the words of Kanye after his first Grammy speech, I believe, I guess we'll never know. So yeah, like I said, I think he'll get a mulligan for this season. James Franklin will. Now, like I said, they play Michigan in a couple weeks, and I don't think John Harbaugh is going to get that mulligan. Or is it? No, Jim Harbaugh. Excuse me. Not John. John's the Ravens coach. But yeah, I don't think Jim Harbaugh's going to get that same mulligan because they've been underachieving for his entire time in Michigan. And this isn't just like a one-off thing where like, all right, these teams were good last year, and like they took a bit of a downturn. Like, is that gonna sway the ADs into getting rid of them? Maybe, maybe not. But like I said, this is a completely different scenario. Like, Michigan has perennially underachieved since he's been the head coach there. So this isn't like I was saying, this isn't a new thing for him. Like I said, they finished 10-3, 10-3, 8-5, 10-3, 9-4 before the season. They've never finished. Oh, they finished tied for first in the conference in 2018, but I believe that was but I think they they lost that spot to Ohio State, if I remember correctly. Or was that? I'm trying to remember what their situation was that year, but how they finished tied for first. It was them and Ohio State, and then I think Ohio State beat them, so that was the problem. So that was the year. That was the year they had it. Like, if they would have won that game that year, then things maybe go a little bit differently, and we're talking about them a bit differently than we are currently. But unfortunately, that is not what happened. And here we are. Like I said, if things go differently and they win that game, then maybe Harbaugh has a better chance of sticking around. But they did not, and not only did they lose, they got smoked, 62-39. In a game where they were the number 4 team in the country. Ohio State was 10. They'd already lost the game. And it was looking like, when Michigan wins this, they could have a shot. And they did not have a shot. Again, you can't give up 62 points. It can't happen. I led Dwayne Haskins for 6 touchdown passes. Like, come on, what are we doing here? Against your arch rival? That's gonna cost you. And I said that was their best shot. They didn't get it done that year. Then last year they went 9-4, finished third in the East again. And now this year they're 1-3. And like I said, I don't think he will get the same. I'm not saying he's going to 100% get fired, but I don't know if he'll get the same COVID weird offseason mulligan that like a PJ Fleck or Ned Ogeron or James Franklin could get, just because those teams hadn't underachieved during the previous those other coaches' tenures. Like, Michigan has underachieved literally the entire time Jim Harbaugh has been there. So again, this isn't just like a new thing. They've never been this bad, but this isn't like a new thing, them like not performing up to their standard. So it's like, how can you be like, oh, it's due to COVID or due to this or due to that? Like, again, maybe without COVID they would be better. But again, them underachieving is not a new concept. It's a pretty common concept actually for Michigan under Jim Harbaugh. So I said, no, I'm not trying to cost the man a job or anything like that. But like, it's hard to give him the COVID excuse this year because they've been bad. They've lost basically every bowl game they've been in as well, on top of the fact that they have underachieved during the regular season. So they're not even like building and having postseason success. They're just like literally just like having a bad season or an average season. And then they're ending it even worse because they end up losing the bowl game. They only won the bowl game his first year. In 2015, they won the Citrus Bowl. Outside of that, they've lost 4 bowl games in a row. So they don't even have that. He doesn't have that on his resume. Like, all right, maybe the regular season's like whatever, but they have a good bowl record. Like, nope, they don't even have that. So yeah, I don't think he will get that same leeway that these other coaches will get in terms of like the COVID-related situation. Like I said, I think, again, we'll see how badly they finish and like, well, they lose to Penn State, then they're definitely probably out of there because Penn State stinks this year. But maybe they'll win that game. Who knows? But like I said, I think it'll depend. Just like it'll depend on all these coaches, how the season ends for these teams. Because if it goes poorly, then I think there's a chance that at least one of these guys, if not more, could end up like Will Muschamp and be looking for a new job, potentially at the end of the season. But we shall see. So that'll do it from here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast. I want to thank you guys as always for listening to me talk about sports. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review, wherever you listen to your podcast at, It'd be very appreciated, very helpful. That's what you guys like, or dislike, the ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. I mean, I'll be talking about it all week, so you can continue to talk about that DeAndre Hopkins catch and that, and like the Hail Mary and everything about it, because I'll be thinking about that play all week and talk about who. Like I said, another week, we really still don't know who the best team in the NFC is, because every week different teams rise to the occasion, different teams falter, so it's hard to peg one team as the prohibited favorite in that conference. So again, if you have any ideas on who you think it could be, feel free to reach out. Also, any of these trade rumors in the NBA, whether it's Harden or how you feel about the Schroeder trade or any other potential trades that could be out there, Drew Holiday, some other guys. Like I said, if you have any opinions on those, feel free to reach out. Let me know how you feel. I'd be more than happy to discuss those with you as well. But again, to each their own. If you how you feel about the Kim Ng being hired as the GM for the Marlins. I think it's a very great moment. Not just cool, it's great. Historic, obviously. But again, we'll see what it translates to, obviously. That this is just the tip of the iceberg. You would think, hopefully, there will be more hires like this coming in the near future. But again, you got to start somewhere, and this is obviously the start. So I'm kind of curious to see how that goes. Also, like I said, if you have any thoughts about college football and like what coaches you think deserve a mulligan and don't deserve a mulligan for their underperformance this year, feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to discuss sports with you guys. Before I get out of here, like I said, I'm giving a shout out to the poll workers. I know some of them are still counting ballots, like provisional ballots and other things, and they obviously have to go through their recounts and stuff in the states where there will be recounts, even though, like, in general, it's not going to matter. But still, you have to go through that. So shout out to them. Because, again, that's still a tough job. Could not imagine having to do that under these circumstances in this election, where the president is currently openly lying on a Twitter account about the results. So that's always fun. And also, like I said, give a shout out to essential workers, because, I mean, I'm not sure if it's going to happen nationwide, but like certain states are about to go back on lockdown. Certain states have already gone back on lockdown just because COVID cases are getting a bit crazy throughout the country. Probably going to hit 200,000 cases sometime this week, I would imagine. Or sometime soon. I don't know about this week. I don't know the numbers like that. But very soon, it's going to get bad. And like I said, and it's only November. Cannot imagine what December, January, real cold and flu season is going to look like. Going to be a mess. So yeah, any essential workers, doctors, nurses, EMTs, first responders, firefighters, delivery drivers, postal service workers, grocery store workers, retail workers, anybody that's deemed essential, shout out to you. Like I said, unfortunately, this does not look like it's going to be ending anytime soon. So I wish you luck. And like I said, you're doing a job that is very thankless and doing a job that many people would not be willing or able to do under the circumstances that you're doing them. But it's much needed, it's much appreciated, at least by me. Like I said, I don't know about everybody else, but I appreciate the work you're doing because, again, I could not imagine having to deal with people and their varying levels of severity in which they take the disease even 8-9 months into it, where we should all be like, hey, this is like kind of serious, like let's try to stop it. And everyone's just like, what if we act like nothing's going on? And then be shocked when the cases are ravaging through the country. But whatever. It's a bit of a mess. Also, shout out to, like, again, FedEx, UPS, Amazon, anybody that's been doing delivery services, Postmates, Uber Eats, Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, Instacart, all the services that allow people not to have to leave their house if they don't want to. Shout out to you because, again, you're doing something that makes it easier and possible for people like myself and others to stay safe and in their home if they don't want to. Like I said, people are willing to go outside, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. Like I said, and that wouldn't be possible without the work of you people. So appreciate you there. Again, if you're still able to go out to bars and restaurants and things like that, please tip your waiters, waitresses, and bartenders nicely, because some of these restaurants aren't going to make it through the winter, unfortunately, especially in these cold weather places, because they won't be able to really have indoor dining like that, and I don't know how they're going to survive. So, like I said, unless we got another stimulus or some sort of relief coming in January, which maybe we do, maybe we don't, we'll see. But again, January is a couple months away, so we got a lot of time between now and then. And in that meantime, in between time, like I said, these people are doing what they can to continue to earn a living. So if you can, and it's within your means to tip them generously, please do. I imagine it will go a long way for these people. Also, wear your mask, please. Yes, it's very simple. But yeah, I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.